Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third Ben Plays live stream of the year. If you're just now finding our Twitch channel and kind of wondering what's going on, this year we'll be playing various games throughout 2022 as a way for us to hang out with you, our community, and chat and play games. You can catch us live every Friday from 5 to 6:30 Pacific time here on Twitch. Ben Studio over here. Here it is. And if you missed our past two streams with God of War PC and Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, you can catch those over on our YouTube channel at Ben Studio. So today, I'm very excited to have three special guests join us from our friends over at Naughty Dog to celebrate the launch of Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection out today. Without further ado, let's welcome our guest. We have from Naughty Dog, Dina Bakir, Digital Communications Manager, Marion Hayden, Senior Cinematic Animator, and Josh Scher, a writer and narrative designer. Welcome, and thanks for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Dina Bakir. I am Naughty Dog's resident digital communications manager. I actually joined Naughty Dog back in 2018. So I worked on The Last of Us Part 2, and I worked on Uncharted Legacy of Thieves. And it's just an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Josh?
Hi, my name's Josh Scher. I was the co-writer and narrative designer on Uncharted 4 and on Uncharted Lost Legacy. Oh, there's me.
There you are.
I have been with Naughty Dog as of next week for 21 years. I've worked on everything from 2001 onward, except for the original Last of Us. I went straight from Uncharted 3 to Uncharted 4, and very excited to be here to talk about the game.
Hi, I'm Marianne Hayden. I'm a senior cinematic animator at Naughty Dog. I've been here since 2009, so that's 12 years. And on Lost Legacy, I worked on the story team, and I've been working on cinematics and different aspects of gameplay for all of those years, jumping from team to team, and it's been a joy.
Awesome. And what have you all, Josh, what have you done with the Lost Legacy? Why still mess with this? Because it has technology and streaming does not agree with me.
Oh, that's fair. So I was the co-writer on the game with Shauna Sky, and was starting to do a lot of early development work with him from the get-go when we were sort of kicking around ideas as to what this game was going to be, and just worked with him and the co-director Kurt Marganow and some of the lead designers on sort of narrowing it down in the early days. Originally, this was going to be a DLC. We had originally sort of sold the idea that after Uncharted 4, we'd be releasing a little bit of DLC content, and we were going to sort of make something much in the same way as The Last of Us Left Behind was, which was like a short 2-hour-ish little mini chapter. But we kind of realized as we were developing the stories that we needed more time, and so it sort of gradually expanded until it turned into the 7 or 8 hour adventure that you have before you today.
What we're going to do is we're going to kind of turn this into a little dev Q&A with Naughty Dog. We're unable to get the game running from our side, so go ahead and drop some questions in the chat, and we can shoot them over to Josh, Marianne, and Dina.
With the caveat, of course, that there are some questions that we cannot answer.
Yes.
Or we just maybe won't tell you the
Yeah.
right answer.
Yeah, or we'll just make something up. Actually, no, we won't do that. I'm just joking, Dana.
2 truths and a lie.
Exactly.
Is that how it works?
We'll create a PR nightmare for you.
Yeah, exactly.
AMA, but just don't violate my NDA.
Yeah.
Yes.
AMAET. And ask me anything except that.
Okay, we got our first one. What was the most challenging aspect about porting over these titles to run natively on PS5?
Oh, wow. I can only speak from what I have heard, but I think, there was the challenge of porting over these games, but also making sure anything that we implemented was authentic, that it really added to the experience and didn't really detract from the original experience. From what I understand, 3D audio was actually pretty challenging because it's brand new. And then I think we implemented haptics for traversal, combat, cinematics, for so many things. So I think because kind of paying attention to details and making sure it feels gratifying while you're playing those moments, even if you're just holding your controller and watching something. But Josh, Marianne, do you have any, from what you've heard through the grapevine?
Yeah, I wasn't directly involved, but the biggest challenge was just the fact that this is the first game that we have shipped on the new hardware on the PlayStation 5. And this was kind of a first in that all of our previous, when we went from PlayStation 1 to 2, we made a brand new engine. We went from 2 to 3, we made a brand new engine. 3 to 4, made a brand new engine. This is the first time we're not making a brand new engine because the hardware is very similar. But even despite that fact, there are just little new nuances and new things, like you can port it over and certain things are not going to work because there's little things that are slightly different. And as Dina mentioned, all the new 3D audio stuff, all the cool haptic stuff. So part of the reason that we did this, apart from wanting to see it look beautiful, was also just so we could get our feet wet with the hardware. And this really gave us a chance to do it.
Got another one. Any features you wish made it into the Uncharted games but didn't?
We experimented with a whole bunch of different mechanics over the years, and the one that I think came closest to making it into Uncharted 4 but ended up getting cut was there was for a while we prototyped a much more elaborate climbing mechanic that actually involved stamina and other things like that. And to make a long story short, it was really cool, but we found that it interfered with the combat arenas. You couldn't sort of do that with the new controls and run and aim and shoot effectively at the same time. And so we ended up having to put it by the wayside.
We have all kinds of questions coming in now. So you all are welcome for our technical difficulties. Which cutscenes, paraphrasing here, was the most challenging to do?
Required the most Frankenstein assembly.
Yep.
From Katie.
Thanks, Katie. I can think of anything in the elephant sequence required a lot of different reshoots, especially when they are at the end and had to fall off into the pond. I remember shooting a lot of that stuff and we didn't know how that was going to work. We didn't know how deep the pond was going to be, and we kept having to change the depth of the pond and how far they were falling. And so how far they were falling kind of changed the action of the actors. So until we could understand what the environment was going to be, we couldn't shoot the whole thing. And that required, I remember we shot it and then we had to mirror the animation because the cameras needed to be on the other side of the elephant, but they weren't. It wasn't that one required a lot of Frankensteining, if I remember correctly. because they fell off the elephant, and then they went in. They stand up, and then they go into another cutscene, and then out of the cutscene, they kind of go into another type of action that they didn't shoot during the cutscene. And lots of piecing together for that one. Are there any others, Josh, that you can think of?
That was, the elephant sequence was definitely like one of the most complicated in the whole game, for sure. From a cinematic standpoint, and from a gameplay animation standpoint, there are certainly a lot of things that were incredibly complex, particularly the sorry spoilers train driving sequence at the very end of Lost Legacy. Like the amount of sort of switching back and forth between different vehicles and making that all look smooth, like was a Herculean effort on the part of the gameplay animators.
Well, I love watching that.
Somebody is asking to turn up Marianne's volume.
I moved my mic closer. Is that
there
any better?
There you go.
Actually, to extend on the elephant point, not quite related to the really complex and interesting work that Josh and Marianne did to make it look that good, but our director of sound, our sound team, Rob Preckle, he mentioned that the elephant literally ate a microphone. Like just straight up, like one of these really nice like microphones that clip on. It just like ate it. And to this day, I giggle a little bit whenever I see the elephant in Lost Legacy, because I'm just like, they definitely were worth the effort. But my goodness, it was probably really fun to work with one. I can imagine.
That's funny.
I think they used until the audio cut out. I think they actually used whatever sound they got before that mic was no more.
It's funny. Now that just makes me think of when you feed the mango to the elephant during that sequence, and you're just like chowing down, like, oh.
It's a microphone being eaten.
That's funny.
From The Last of Us Strategist, big part of the Last of Us community. What was the coolest / most interesting part of adding in the haptic feedback controls?
That is a good question. None of us worked on it directly. But I think it was just really, for a lot of that was Kurt Marganow and one of our designers, Grant Haist, who really sort of took the ball and ran with that. And I think for them, just in talking with them, it sounded like the cool thing was just exploring what the possibilities were for the first time, because we were just used to working with the DualShock previously, which had rumble but sort of limited. And this, you're able to get it into specific parts of the controller at different intensities. And so they really wanted to try to see what they could do to push it just based on the stuff that was in the game already. So from the weapons to like the Jeep going over bumps to like any like running under like water and that sort of thing, like anything they could really do to sort of help sell the immersion with the tactile feedback was cool.
I'm a big fan of the haptic feedback too. I love it in the games. It really does, it's in the beginning it's like, oh, this is just one of those features that, could eventually, just become a thing. But this, like, it actually does immerse you a little bit more. It's really neat. I love it. And the little bit I played so far with Legacy of Thieves Collection, you feel it, and it just adds another thing to gaming.
Yeah, it really sort of just gives you sort of like a wide range of expression for like getting the players involved.
Yeah. Here's a question from our design manager here at Ben Studio, Eric Jensen. When you decided to move Lost Legacy from DLC to a full-length title, did the story grow with that? Were you able to develop the characters farther than originally intended?
It was less about moving from DLC to full-length title. It was more that we realized we had developed a full-length title and ditched the DLC moniker. We had many pitches for Lost Legacy. There was an early version where we were exploring a Sullivan story. There was an early version where we were exploring a Chloe Nadine story, and we looked at it and we realized, like, oh my God, this is another 14-hour game. We can't do this. And so we sort of pared everything back to the bare essentials, then started building on that. And then even on top of that, we realized it was going to be probably at least a 5-hour game. So at that point, we were like, okay, we're going to start developing it as such. And then the final version of the game, I think if you like do absolutely everything, is like 7 or 8 hours or so. So it just sort of naturally evolved into this thing because we just realized, if you want to tell a good, complete story, you need time. You need time to establish the situation in the city and in the Western Ghats. You need time to grow Nadine and Chloe's relationship from being at best chilly with one another to becoming sort of kind of comrades and friends by the end. Like all these things just take time, and in some ways more so than if you're just like watching a movie because you're sort of in the midst of all of it. So yeah.
All right. Next one. In general, what do you think would surprise fans most about game development?
Sorry. Sorry. What would surprise? That's a great question, honestly.
I'll start.
Yeah.
We as a studio have kind of been reminiscing all week about, the beginning of our development of Lost Legacy, and personally I've been looking through like old mocap footage and old previs and like how where certain scenes or sections, like especially like the elephant section, like what it started out as and how many stages it went through. I mean, if you could see some of the ideas of like, all right, of how Nadine and Chloe end up getting on the elephant, like where that started, and you're like, what? Like, why did we even think that was going to work? Then we went through so many different iterations before ending up like what actually ended up in the game, and like even going to the stage and shooting it and getting it, shooting stuff that was not going to work ever, and getting it in the game and then playing it and be like, yeah, that's not going to work. But we had to like see it happen before realizing like we need to move on to something else because we tried something, didn't work, move on.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like surprising, I'd probably say that it's always a lot harder than you think. And obviously it depends on the studio, it depends on the game, but particularly at the scale at which we work, like every little detail that goes into the game requires dozens and hundreds of conversations between dozens of people and all just trying to make sure that we're all kind of like on the same page, that we're about something, that we're all like sort of dedicated particular vision of a particular moment or a level or the entirety of the game. And it's just a lot of constant conversations, checking in with each other and just looking at each other's work and maybe catching something that like I completely didn't notice because I'd been staring at something for so long, but somebody else is like, hey Josh, did you notice like Chloe's arm is going through her face right there? It's like, I didn't notice that, but thank you. And it's really just like, and at a certain point it's also deciding like, okay, we can't do everything. So what is most important to the game and what is most important to us, and sort of drilling down and focusing on that. But the rewards are also that, like, as Marianne said, like, hey, remember that thing we thought was going to be impossible and then we did it. That was really great.
And making sure that it adds to the story and doesn't take away from the experience.
Yep.
Like, don't just add something to make it have another feature. Like, it needs to make sense. Yep. And it needs to feel good.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I mean, too, when I was referring to the old climbing system that we were prototyping for Uncharted 4. I mean, we spent many months on that, trying out a lot of different things, and we just had to realize, as excited as we were about it, it just wasn't going to fit with some of the gameplay mechanics, and it just wasn't going to have the time it required to make it all polished. And yeah, I mean, there was thinking about something else. In Uncharted 4, in the level set in the Scotland cathedral and cemetery, as you're going through the escape sequence, you might notice that you come out into the cemetery and there's this crane that's just kind of sitting there, not doing anything before you like run down some hills and being shot at. There was a sequence in that game where the crane was actively swinging its wrecking ball back and forth, trying to smash you. There was a point that Drake was hanging onto the wrecking ball as it was being smashed through parts of the cathedral. There's a point where the person driving the crane died and fell onto the controls, and the whole crane was kind of tipping into the pit as you were riding on it. And we got about halfway into the production of it, and we just sort of realized that, one, it was slowing down the pacing of that section, and two, it was also taking effort away from other parts of the game that were much more important to the story. And one of the hardest things about games is that sometimes you don't know how long something is going to take, particularly when it comes to gameplay stuff. You just prototype and you iterate, and you hopefully get to the fun sooner rather than later.
Hello, chat. I see everyone's first time viewers. If you're coming in now, we're doing just a little hangout with Naughty Dog here. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and I will get them to the important people of the stream today. What are some of your favorite games or games that have inspired you or continue to inspire you?
Oh boy. Does anybody else want to go first? I have to think for a second. I have to think for a second.
Go for it, Josh.
Yeah, Josh, you inspired actually a lot of my favorite games. If anyone's interested in following Josh on Twitter, his game recommendations are banger. Like Disco Elysium, I would not have played that if it weren't for you. Every time, I'm just like, I know you're my like favorite review site.
If
Period.
Josh recommends a game, if he's like, Marianne, you need to play this game, I'm like, okay, play it. Otherwise, I don't have time to play games. But if Josh tells me to play a game, I play the game.
I can speak more recently. From the last year, I finally picked up Disco Elysium at Josh's recommendation, and it was life-changing. Like, that is so masterfully written. And then more recently, I'm big into JRPGs, so Shin Megami Tensei 5. But in general, any JRPG that takes me more than 100 hours, I'll probably end up playing at some point.
Yeah, Disco Elysium is definitely one of them. It's a really dense and richly imagined role-playing game that really does have some of the best writing I've seen in a game. It's just, it's one of those things where I'll be playing it and I'll get to something, a little passage, and I'll just be like, this is so good, I hate it and I love it. But it's really, there's that. The one game I will evangelize to my death and will never shut up about is Outer Wilds. Not to be confused with the Outer Worlds, which is, I'm sure, a very good game, but I haven't played it. But Outer Wilds is this very open-ended space exploration game where you explore this tiny little solar system, and there's this very interesting story sort of tied up with the whole thing. And it's a time loop game, in that every 25 minutes the sun in the solar system goes supernova, and so you're sort of trying to discover why this is happening and see if you can stop it.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, I haven't played either one of these games, so now they're on my list. Thank you.
And more recently, I was really impressed by. I see Marco Polo beat me to it. I was really impressed by Inscription, which, on its surface, is a deck building game, and I'm not usually into those, but the presentation of it and the vibe of it is really unique, and it goes places that you do not expect. And it's definitely one of those games that the less said about it, the better. You just want to go in blind. Just a plain old normal deck building card game. Nothing mysterious about it. Nope, not at all. Definitely does not break the fourth wall. Definitely does not delve into all kinds of weird stuff. Trying to think. I really enjoyed Deathloop last year. That was a lot of fun. And also, I don't even know how to describe this game. There's this game called Loop Hero, which has aspects of like town building and also collectible card stuff. But yeah, it's difficult to describe, but like you start with this empty road and you place cards down on the road and it will spawn monsters, or it'll like grant your character certain properties, and you don't actually do any of the fighting. It's all automatic, but like as you gain more experience, you build more cards and you start sort of rebuilding this town as you go. It's really interesting. I hadn't played anything like that before. I have to think a little bit more. See, my problem is I'm old like the trees and my brain is like a sieve, so I have trouble remembering all the stuff that I've played recently.
You are a walking encyclopedia of games. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just like, if you ask me to send you a list, I'm happy to send a list, but like ask me in the moment and I'm just like, But yeah, definitely Inscription, Outer Wilds, and I know I'm forgetting something and I'll probably come back to. I'll be answering some other question and I'll be like, blah, 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 and I'll just blurt it out because they won't want to forget.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of replaying The Last of Us Part 2 right now, and I
heard that was all right.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right? It's impacting me more now than it did the first time. Even though I know what's coming, I don't want to give any spoilers in case anyone hasn't played in the chat, but yeah, just those certain story beats. I'm like, I love this game, but oh man, this is so heartbreaking. But I'm going through the platinum run. I'm doing one of the permadeath settings. I'm not too brave. I'm not going to do the whole game. I'm just doing per chapter, and that's kicking my butt. But man, I've been just having so much fun being back into that world. And I'm a big like photo mode person, and I didn't take many shots in my first playthrough of it just because I just kind of wanted to go through the story. So now I get to experience, doing so many photo mode shots and seeing the details and stuff come through. It's like, man, that game is something else.
Oh god, I lose so much time to photo modes. Like it's a problem.
Yeah, it's addicting.
I probably spent nearly as much time in the Ghost of Tsushima photo mode as I did actually playing the game. Because they were just like, wait a minute, I can add like cherry blossoms flowing.
Yeah, the animations were so cool.
I can move the light. I can do all these things. Are you kidding me? And so I'd be like in the middle of a mission, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, and I'd like start looking at the camera, and I'm just like, oh, is there something? Oh, this looks so great. And then I restart the game, and then I die because I forgot what I was doing.
And same thing with Insomniac's games, where they have that advanced lighting feature, and you can turn a shot into something incredible. Like you were saying, Ghost of Tsushima, that animation part was such a cool feature they implemented in photo mode. Like I'm pretty sure that's the first time it's an animated feature has been in there. But switching out the leaves and everything, that was so cool.
Yeah, and actually that reminds me, Ratchet and Clank is another game I really enjoyed.
Yes, so good.
Definitely one of the first sort of like really made for the PlayStation 5, and like there were times I was watching it, it was just like I feel like I'm watching like a Pixar movie. Like that is how good this looks.
Yeah.
Like if you stand a certain distance, you're not going to notice that it's real time. It's just bonkers to me. Like I always have these little thought experiments with myself. Like, what if 8-year-old Josh, who grew up playing the Atari 2600, like saw like what games would look like when like 40 years later, just like what? Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, my kids played that game, and then my daughter, who's 8, well, she's like, she beat it, and she's like, oh, I want to play on the next mode, the harder mode. Like, she's like, I gotta have this boss battle, I gotta beat it on the next hardest level. I'm like, okay. And I'll sit there and I'll just watch it with her because it is, like you said, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love those.
What's nice.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I love those games that reach whole age, just from little kids to grown adults. And like my daughters were playing it a little bit too, and they're 5 and 7. And then I'm 30, and I'm enjoying it just as much as they are. I got the platinum with it. It's one of my favorites last year. So yeah, that they carved something special, and Rift Apart just kind of stepped up a whole nother level with that series.
Let's see, I'm looking in the chat for other questions.
Yeah,
we say hi to Keon, because if Keon is still here.
We have one from Dan Hogan that's here in Ben's studio. Do you find writing for characters outside the series' main protagonist difficult or more enjoyable? What were some hurdles or revelations that occurred as a result of changing the process?
Changing the process. Sorry.
What
Can you read
were
the question
some?
again? I'm sort of.
Yeah, it's two-parter here, so I'll give you the first one. Do you find writing
Okay.
for characters outside the series' main protagonist difficult or more enjoyable?
Oh, gotcha. Uh, yeah. So switching, obviously, part of the goal with Lost Legacy was to see if we could do a game without Nathan Drake, and the challenge was part of the fun. Honestly, like. Partially because one, we wanted to bring Chloe back because she was kind of like a fan favorite from Uncharted 2, and in some ways she parallels Drake in a lot of ways. She's sort of like she's basically Nathan Drake, but with even like less of a moral compass than he does to some degree. And she's also somebody who, unlike Nathan Drake, who has kind of a hero complex and always wants to save everybody, Chloe is always the one who's just like things get a little rough. She's like, oh, that's it, I'm out. It's more important for me to continue living. And it was interesting for us to sort of explore that particular character trait in a situation where it sort of turns into like, okay, well, what does Chloe care about, and like what would make her care about this particular job that she's on. And then, we were sort of trying to come up with ideas for who we could pair her up with. And, Nadine came to the forefront. One, because they both have sort of like a mercenary background and things like that. But, Chloe is very cavalier and careful, whereas Nadine is like a lot stricter, a lot more sort of like by the book military type. And we thought that would be fun. And the other thing about Nadine, unique thing about Nadine, of course, is that she's the only antagonist from an Uncharted game that actually survived the game that she was in. Lazarevich dead, Marlowe dead, Roman dead, so Rafe dead. So bringing her back sort of gave us a chance to explore it. And the thing that's fun about Uncharted is that there was always these hints of a much larger universe of stolen antiquities collectors and thieves and scoundrels and mercenaries. And so it's just a chance to sort of broaden it out and explore that a little bit. So yeah, it felt, honestly, I mean, the challenge of it was coming up with a story worthy of the characters in the franchise, but it was a challenge that we really enjoyed.
Looking through the chat for any other questions. If we missed any...
I just wanted to let Marco Polo know that Rafe is definitely dead. He's definitely dead.
Confirmed?
Confirmed. I saw the Maya file. He was under that pile of boxes. Definitely.
You heard it here first.
True to Naughty Dog's attention to detail, we still have it beneath the boxes, just to make sure.
What is your favorite scene from the Lost Legacy and Uncharted 4?
That's like 2 questions.
That is... Like Uncharted 4, IGN just had that Art of the Level come out with the chase sequence. That was so cool to watch. I love seeing those little details and getting behind, the dev's process of creating that. That was awesome.
That was bonkers. I mean, that's one of the highlights in the game. And it was also one of the first, if not the first, fully 100% polished sequences that we created for that game. And it was interesting. Sorry, there's somebody in the chat who keeps commenting on overrated sequence. Now, who are you? Okay. He's secretly Kurt Margenau. Outing him. But it's...
We're done now.
Yeah, it's all done. But the kind of set pieces that we do, I mean, the thing that we always strive to do in our games is to try to keep as much of this, as we say, story on the stick as possible. The less time you spend just sort of watching everything play out in a cutscene versus you actually experiencing it one way or the other. We always try to aim for the latter. So this was obviously an incredibly ambitious sequence, and it took a lot of planning and a lot of pre-visualization and a lot of new technology that we hadn't made yet. But in the end, it's sort of like is one of the standout pieces from the game, and part of the reason for that is that you're in full control for almost the entire thing, like except for that last part where you're shooting back at the truck and you're just like aiming and firing. Everything else is you are driving the Jeep, and you are shooting at people, and you're jumping from truck to truck. And it was just sort of a culmination of a lot of the things that we had learned making the previous Uncharted games. And but if I had to, pick a non, and I also loved from Lost Legacy the train sequence there, and also the elephant sequence. But if I had to pick sort of like a non sort of bombastic, over the top moment from the game, my favorite little bit is in Uncharted 4 when you are with Elena and you've just sort of like ridden up this very large pirate elevator thing, sort of having a conversation of what's gone down, and you hop back into the Jeep, and there's just a moment that lasts about 2.5 minutes where you're just driving, all the sound effects get ducked, the music sort of kicks in, and you're just driving through this sort of beautiful scenery and just sort of reflecting on everything that's happened. And that was something that was, it just sort of gives you a moment of respite. And then literally 30 seconds after that, you drive on a bridge and the bridge collapses and you're in a waterfall and you're like, ah! But I like a lot of the quiet moments.
All right, chat, if you want to get your final questions in, we have a few more minutes here until we wrap it up. Let them enjoy their weekend. So go ahead and drop them if you have any more. I have one, actually.
Go for it.
You can only choose one Naughty Dog game that played like the rest of your life. Which one is it?
Crash Team Racing, obviously.
Oh man.
Lost Legacy. I don't know, because I had so much fun working on it. It's probably one of my favorites. But having two strong women as the two main characters that was kind of a first for me to work on. And I remember shooting some of our stunt scenes and being on the mocap stage and looking around and noticing that there were more women than men on the mocap stage for the first time I had ever experienced. That was kind of, I don't know, that was a really, really cool experience, because we had two women who were actors, and we had Almudena and myself who were directing, and then we had a few women who were on the crew, and then I think it was like 60% women, 40% men for like a few shoots that we had. That is not normal, or it wasn't normal, but it's becoming normal now, and that was such a cool thing to experience on that game. And I also love the game, but like all of that combined made that experience like really awesome for me.
That's awesome.
Oh man, that is such a cosmic question, because I think I have like different happy memories associated with like each game that I've played from the studio. Like, keeping in the context that I've only been here for almost 4 years, there's history. But I guess I'd have to say The Last of Us. Like, there was something like when I was playing it that felt like really profound. Like, it really felt resonant with my relationship with like even my dad, where I just felt like this just strong kinship, like despite all things. It was just a really beautiful story. I lose it every time, and it's like not even a bias anymore because I work at Naughty Dog. It's just it just gets me. So second best for me would be Jack and Daxter, just because I shared that so much with my brother, and it was like the one time we weren't screaming at each other and just playing and having a good time. So yeah, I think I have like lots of good memories though associated with a lot of Naughty Dog games, and that's the T right there.
Yeah, Last of Us would be mine. It's definitely like one of my favorite games of all time. I've done multiple playthroughs like many of us have, but I played it after. So when I played it first, I didn't have kids. I played it after, and I have 2 daughters now. And that hit me so much harder than I anticipated. And it like you said, it just gives you a whole new connection to the game that you just didn't realize. But yeah, that game was truly something special.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I had to choose one of the two that are out in this collection, I would probably go with Lost Legacy for the simple reason, apart from doing our first sort of like little spin-off thing with a couple of female protagonists. It was also just like making Uncharted 4, while incredibly rewarding, was very, very difficult. But Lost Legacy in some ways allowed us to sort of like take everything that we had learned making Uncharted 4 and sort of hit the ground running with it. Like, it was still a challenge, but it didn't feel like moving from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 and completely reinventing the wheel. It was sort of like, we have the engine, we have a lot of our tools, we have a lot of our working methods, and this is how we were actually able to make that game in a year. Like, which again, I think about that now, and not an easy thing. And it's just a lot of fun. I like the sort of freewheeling nature of it. I enjoy Chloe as a character, and the whole sequence at the end, which I won't spoil just in case somebody out there hasn't played it, is we sort of refer to it internally as Uncharted's greatest hits, because we just kind of took everything we loved about the previous games and like put it all into like one big sequence. If I had to choose something that wasn't one of these two games, I would probably say Uncharted 2. And for that, I think it's because Uncharted 2 was the first, like Uncharted 1 was us trying to figure out the PlayStation 3. And again, very hard game to get out the door, and we were very happy that it did get out the door as well as it did. Looking back now, it feels a little rough, but the thing was, as we were trying to finish that game, all of us were like coming up with these ideas for things we wanted to do next. Like, we could do this better, or we could try these things. And Uncharted 2 was the game that everybody was just like super jazzed to hit the ground running. And when we did our E3 demo that year and had such an incredibly strong reaction to it, we felt like, okay, we're making something special. And just the response to the game and playing the game was just really something special to me. So if I had to choose one, it would be that one.
Looks like we have a few more here. We'll do what? 2 more? Then we'll kind of wrap it up and head out. The ending credit sequence for Lost Legacy was so cool and unique for the franchise. Who came up with that idea?
Well, Kurt kind of answered it in chat, but for the ending, are we talking about the end credits here, Eric, or are we talking about the little mini mid-credits scene? Also, spoilers. The mid-credits scene was the mid-credits scene was planned a while in advance. It was an idea that I think Sean came up with, just like a nice little coda to wrap up the entire thing. But for the end credits, that sort of had these little caricatured versions of all the characters and the events in the game. Can't remember. I probably was Sean who came up with the idea. I don't really remember. But the artwork for the end sequence was done by Janice Chu, who was our UI UX artist at the time. And she's at Bungie now, but she's incredibly talented and worth following on Twitter, because she always posts a lot of interesting artwork.
Oh yeah, the Uncharted movies coming out soon. How excited are you all to see it? Like, I'm excited to see it.
Oh man,
it's fascinated.
For real.
Yeah, it's gonna be surreal. Yeah,
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I've been following its development since forever.
10
So
years.
yeah, so it is no end of amusement to me that in the early days it was Mark Wahlberg being proposed and cast as Drake, and now he's playing Sully. So just to give you a sense of how long that span lasted. but it's it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't been to a movie since the pandemic started. I want to go to a theater. Maybe this will be the first one I go see in a theater.
Yeah, Spider-Man was my first one I've seen for a few years, and it was nice.
Yeah, I saw Dune last year. That was my first time back in the theater.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that was worth it.
I watched that one at home. I've been liking these same day as theater coming in digitally at home. Like, yeah, this is great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of a homebody, so it fits perfectly.
Oh yeah, as a parent, it's a godsend. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
here's something I want to see, but I don't necessarily want to essentially spend $80 to see because I'm
Yep.
paying for the movie ticket and the babysitter.
Right.
So
Parent problems
So-
right there.
yeah, so like made an exception for Dune because that really the big screen worked very well. But
And the
quite
cinematography was so beautiful. Wow.
yeah, but like Encanto, we are subscribing to the Disney
Oh,
Channel.
yeah,
It's right
right.
there.
It's
Yep,
great.
done and done.
And what song stuck in your head from that constantly? Bruno, that one's in my head.
Bruno.
It's on
All of
constant
them.
repeat on my house, on my Google Home. It's just blasting
same.
through.
Same. I'll take that over Let It Go, though. Frankly,
Yeah. This
that was
out.
Yeah.
that was a thing 6 years ago.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's kind of a good spot to stop. Thank you all for stopping by and chatting with us. Thank you three for kind of maneuvering this with me and putting this out here and answering the community's questions. Hopefully it kind of went smoother at the end here. Hopefully we didn't scare you off and you can come back later, please, because it was a joy to have you. Thank you so much, just for showing so much interest to jump on this stream and chat with us. It was really great. If you guys want to say any parting words before you leave.
Thanks for having me. Sorry, there's dishes in the background, but
Thanks for-
I'm working from
Yeah,
home.
thanks for having us. Thank you for taking the time to hang out and listen to us ramble about stuff.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Kevin. I guess it's a little bit of BTS. You're one of the people I learned a lot from. As we're working on communications and just you're just on a class of your own. You've done the most. So thank you to Bend. Thank you to the team at Naughty Dog. Y'all have been supportive and incredible. It was great to celebrate digitally with y'all today. Thank you to Kurt for making the chat really entertaining, and I had a lot of face cracks. And thanks to I see a few people from our community too, Tilo Strategist, I'm going to call you out. And it's just great to see y'all too. So just thanks across the board. It's like a big family. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and congratulations again for today's release. Everyone give them a nice congratulations in the chat. And hopefully you all get to play some Uncharted this weekend. I think I'll be diving into that between The Last of Us Part 2, because right now I'm obsessed with it.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yep, thank
Thanks,
you.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, all. Everyone else, thank you. Thank you for joining. I've been really enjoying these streams every week. I love seeing so many familiar and new names in the chat. Next week, hopefully, as long as things are working properly, we'll be going back to our own game, and we're going to be playing my personal favorite of all time, Days Gone. We'll also be joined by design manager Eric Jensen and game designer Philip Wilson, who was on our previous stream with Fall Guys. We also have a very special guest coming onto the stream next week that I promise you do not want to miss. Please, technology, please be good for me. See you all next Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you for joining. Bye.
All right.